Hey guys, Bunker2 here of course, and today we're going to discuss the Sharnhorst. Now, Sharnhorst is a very old premium. It's actually the first premium I ever owned. I loved this new style of play and I wanted to give it a go. So, I actually have the old camel for it. So let's put the old camera on just to reminisce a little bit. I actually have the Sharnhorst and the Sharnhorst B as well. So, I do like the old camel, but we'll keep it to the Arctic for now because it's new and it's relevant. We also have the Sharnhorst B, so you know, in terms of looking at the ship just looks absolutely gorgeous. And it's definitely worth mentioning. These German ships are genuinely the prettiest in my opinion. Anyway, sorry, without much further ado, we'll get into the modules. Aiming systems, this thing has torpedoes and it's definitely worth it, particularly with the German accuracy. You could run the secondary mod, but I think aiming systems is a better option, definitely. Propulsion to get there quickly, you definitely want that. You could run either of the three though, that's personal preference, and then target acquisition if you have the money to spare. Now, the thing that makes the Sharnhorst really cool is these torpedoes and these 283mm guns. Okay, these guns cannot. I'll go more into this into the game. These guns do not overmatch cruisers. These are really big cruiser guns, unlike the Gneisenau 15-inch guns. These are different. So let's go to commander build. Good day's work for the digital damage controls, Porcupine for buffing the secondaries, Firefighter for reducing the fire chance to 3, fires to 3, and Mass Mechanic for the additional healing and the Wilter build as well. With Franz von Hipper and Mikhail Kedorov for the turret traverse. I do really not need it too much for Sharnhorst. You could run something else other than Kedorov. Argeline Sharnhorst is viable as well, or Andrew Cunningham as well. The reason I don't run torpedo launch is because if your torpedo skills torpedoes get taken out, which they do from time to time, that whole second row of skills is eliminated. You get nothing out of that. Whereas Porcupine, you always get some sort of use out of it. You could run Henry G. Hyde with this build here as well. There's other options. There's plenty of options for German battleships. But yeah, definitely recommend Kedorov. For the Sharnhorst, you could run that, and it is really helpful, even though the turrets do turn really quickly. You could run a ton of other options, really. There's so many options, really, to pick from. In terms of the armour scheme, every tier 6 battleship has a 25mm nose, but only the Sharnhorst, Gneisenau, and the Synop have an icebreaker. This is the 70mm icebreaker. So, overmatching from the front can work from upper nose, and upper stern, but not directly from the front. Take off the superstructure, 50mm deck, you'll shatter HE. In terms of superstructure, as a German ship, you don't have that much, so HE is a problem, as always will be, regardless of the ship you play, but it is a really well armoured ship. As you can see, that's a turtleback right there. Very good turtleback. Almost impossible to citadel from closer ranges as well. Incredibly tanky ship, really well done in terms of the armour. One of the tankiest ships in this game, period. So yeah, as you can see, the Gneisenau sister ship, almost exactly the same armor scheme. I don't know if there's ever any variations. If you do know, please tell me in the comments below. As you can see, if we just go through all the wee battleships at tier 6, I know it's a little bit long, but everything has 25mm bow and stern. Let's go for the Colorado. The whole thing looks like it's 25. It's not really all of it, but some of it's 25, 25, 25. Everything is 25. King George 25, and it's really important that everything you see is 25 except the Sharnhorst and the Synop, because it gives you that chance you can actually rush in people nose in, which is something you not awfully can't do. You see the Synop, the amount of the nose is overmatchable. It's quite large. You're not going to get many citadels. There's a chance of it, but it's unlikely. With the Sharnhorst, you'll just not get that. The icebreaker protects it completely. So yeah, definitely worth looking at, definitely worth mentioning, and without much further ado, we'll head right into a match. So here we go. This match here was with the division of me and Celestial. So this is in the sister ship, the Gneisenau, and I'm in the Sharnhorst. So obviously when doing Masterclasses, I try not to do division play, but this was such a good game, I had to feature this and show this off. First things first, torpedo your Celestial, always required. Now, if you have a torpedoes, you definitely worth doing it. It's always worth it. Recommend it every time. Works every time. So, first thing we're going to do, cover. German battleships love cover. And unfortunately though, I have a little bit of a potato in my team here. He's in a Sharnhorst and he's on my left, who is really kind of obstructing my path. Fortunately, I am on the mic with this guy, and I tell him to back up a little bit because I'm trying to get behind the islands and avoid being early blapped and potentially citadel, because my turtleback doesn't really work at this range. So because I had to turn, wasn't able to fully turn. I wasn't 100% prepared for that. I did manage to angle away in time, but as you can see, it could have been much worse if they didn't go for someone else. Myoko, as you can see, these are only 283mm guns. They can't really overmatch much, only 19mm of armour, so you really do struggle to do much to angled cruisers. You will not overmatch it. It's all about the broadsides. You definitely need to switch rounds ammo types. So this battleship is not battleship caliber guns. You need to be aware of this. You need to aim for the upper hull. Other than that, you're not going to do anything unless you're really close ranges. What this does though is it lets you really get those citadels and cruisers. It's like the hood in that regard. It really lets you penetrate the cruisers, because the caliber doesn't overmatch as comfortably. It doesn't just over penetrate things. It has enough pen to rip them a new one, and it also has a quick fire rate as well, so you're not really punished for bad shots. These penetrations is what makes the Sharnhorst really good. It's these guns that are really good for killing cruisers. Be aware though that if the cruiser angles, or potentially bow tanks, depending on the cruiser, you will not be able to overmatch it and you'll have to be forced to switch to HE. This Myoko is giving a flat broadside. In a lot of battleships, this could be either a depth strike or full over pen. In a Sharnhorst, it's likely to be a lot of pens and a lot of damage, and most likely a citadel, because of these low caliber guns. Because they're lower, they're not necessarily battleship caliber guns that'll overpen all the time. It's just more likely, I must state that, you'll still get overpens. It's not, you know, just like a cruiser shooting AP at another cruiser, there's still a chance of overpens. But you're more likely to get the penetrations, you're more likely to deal more comfortably with cruisers, and you have a very fast fire rate as well. So you can pump out a relatively good amount of DPM for a battleship. You're also comfortable dealing with battleships because of these fast firing guns, which do pack a punch regardless of the caliber, and they also do have these infamous torpedoes on either side and pretty decent secondaries as well. So you've got that paired with a really good armour scheme as well, and a very good health pool. You are essentially a very good tank and a very good rushing machine for your team. And if you pick the right time to brawl, you'll do incredibly well to ship. Pick the wrong time, you'll die quick. Torpedoes are still a massive threat. You need to be aware of your torpedo threat before you do in the rush. There's only one DD this game, and as long as we know where he is, that's the biggest problem we can deal with. And now we know that he's taken out. There we go. But, as you can see, the shot's nothing, barely any overpens at all. This is what the Sharnhorst really shines at, broadside cruisers. It does require, though, the enemy to make mistakes. You have to give broadside to a Sharnhorst in order for it to effectively damage you. Angling can bounce a lot of shells in the Sharnhorst. This is not a battleship in terms of the gunpowder. This is a really big cruiser. This is effectively it's like the Cheshire, effectively. A little bit bigger than the Cheshire in terms of guns, but it's essentially that sort of thing. You can overmatch 90mm of armour, so most tier 5 cruisers think you can overmatch, but again, it's a rule of thumb. You really want to be using AP on broadside targets only. You really don't overmatch much. So Goliath and I pushes in. Fortunately, I do have Callisto over here on my flank. I've said in a masterclass I'd try not to feature division play too much, but this was a very interesting game. So we've got London over here. We're gonna probably shoot the guns on the London, because you can probably death strike the London. We're gonna fire both sets of our torpedoes here, and we're gonna be very cautious about not getting torpedoed by the other guys now. As you see, the AP at range, you definitely want to use it, and it's pretty darn effective considering my reload is very quick. And again, if he's angling, you shoot HE, and there's nothing wrong with shooting HE in this boat. At close ranges though, AP becomes incredibly effective, and regardless of their battleship caliber guns or not, these guns do pack one hell of a wallop with the AP, as you can see. And you can see even then, there's still some shatters, because these are not battleship caliber guns. These are super cruiser guns, effectively. Secondaries put in work. Geisenhow did avoid her torpedoes, but Callisto did send some over there, and those are going to connect, which is always good. Yeah, it's usually you leave your torpedoes to the last possible moment for ensuring that they're accurate, because obviously once you fire them, the cooldown's long enough for you to get killed if you miss them. So as you can see, the Sharnhorst is decimates cruisers at broadside. They're very likely to get citadels and even dead strikes as well with that. As I said before though, just a side note as well, the torpedoes, you need to be careful about them because people can see you sending them. They know you have to turn to a certain angle in order to fire them, and it's pretty darn obvious for good players to see when you're going to send torpedoes. So sending them in advance can help, and your predictive torping is really what you need to do in some situations. But holding on to the last possible second can do you really well, and it's difficult to say, you know, in this situation. Solisto over here has done a decent game, but I'm keeping him alive while they're built. He's not, as you saw earlier, he wasn't prepared for the initial salvos of everyone, and he took some massive damage at the start. Fortunately for me, they've kind of been focusing him this game, so we're going to do what we can just to try and tank over for him and push on for our team. Sometimes tanking for the team is very relevant. Fortunately for us, Solisto's been doing that on our behalf, meaning that I can really showcase what the Sharnhorst guns can do more than the armour scheme, which I'm sure all of you know by now. This Sharnhorst is incredibly tough, incredibly persistent as well. So I'm actually baiting out a little bit broadside. I'm angled enough for the Fuso that he's not going to do anything to me, but I'm giving a little bit more broadside just so that he'd shoot me a little bit, so he wouldn't shoot at my division mate. As you can see, Sharnhorst guns, even at a flat broadside, some of them are shattering, some of them are bouncing. You need to aim really high up sometimes. The closer you get, the more effective you are, so bear that in mind. Again, you just need to be well aware of the torpedo threats, and you need to be aware of what you're rushing into. You can't rush into 5 battleships, you're just going to die. You need to be very cautious and calculated with your brawling methods. You need to remember who's in there, where's the torpedo threat, what happens after I kill that target, can I disengage, am I just going to die, and if so, is it worth it, is it not worth it? You need to be aware of that. I've got a video on this again that I link all the time, but I'll link it again under this brawler video, when to brawl, how to brawl. Really useful information. I did it in the Gneisenau, which will be incredibly useful for a Sharnhorst video. Just to be aware that you don't have that 380mm guns that can overmatch a lot of things. So we're going to finish off the Sharnhorst here, just repeatedly firing him, repeatedly firing and firing and firing. Solisto does steal the kill, that's fine, just normal, whatever. As you can see, just persistent firing and firing and firing. We're going to keep the AP on, probably should switch to HE, but we're going to fire what we got in the barrels, and we're going to switch to HE very soon. Well, we should at least, I don't know, we haven't done that yet, but as you can see, HEP's alright, we got a pen. We're just going to see what's going on. So, in terms of who's going to win this game here and what we're going to do here, the best bet for Solisto is to sit low in health as he goes up and goes caps the base. Sharnhorst can do these things, and you really want to get in brawls as possible, but you don't want to do this early on. You don't want to lose too much health. You want to have enough health to bully the enemy into submission, and then late game, and that way you can really show your strengths and just absolutely murder these things. California, 14-inch guns, you are incredibly well armoured. When you're angling and when you're bow tanking, you can't even overmatch that. As you can see, most of that bounced. You took a couple for pens on our superstructure, not really much. He's angled towards us, so we switch to HE. We're going to do our best to brawl with us. Worth checking your torpedoes ever so often to see whether he's going, what he's doing. Torpedo indicator does tell you how fast the ship is going in terms of the indicator. If the indicator's going off to the far side, you know, if he's turning that way, it tells you all these things. It tells you where he's turning, all valuable stuff. I'm not actually sending torpedoes, I'm just using it to gather information. And information is very key when it comes to these sort of things. So we're going to fire one more salvo of HE. The dispersion looks a bit wonky, but it's okay. It's the Sharnhorst. It fires constantly. We switch to AP as soon as we fire our last salvo here. Last salvo does connect to 2 shells, and he is burning to death, which is always good. And okay, some shots coming in from a battleship, but we bounced most of it off our thick armour belt, and he should be going down pretty quick. There we go. He's out. It's not worth wasting a shot on, getting spotted and taking on any unnecessary damage. So hopefully Solisto can go and capture the enemy base, because we are down on points and we definitely need to do something about it. Just me and Solisto now. I've got 4 heals. I really wish I was shot at more. I can't really control that, unfortunately, but that's just how the cookie crumbles. So we're going to push in. I knew the flint was here, So we're going to definitely prioritize me picking fighting the Flint over Celeste over here in the guys now, because he does have those big guns that are highly likely to overpen, whereas my guns, as you see, are more likely to penetrate. In terms of HE fire, even with EOP, the Flint is going to struggle to do anything to ours in terms of pen damage besides the superstructure. We've got 4 heals, we can certainly tank it all. What I'm worried about though is his torpedoes, because the Flint has very long range torpedoes. So California is pushing in. He is definitely going to engage with Mike and Eisenhower. That is a big problem there, and we're going to see if we can try and help him out as much as possible. At this range, Sharnhorst AP is still effective. You're just not going to get any citadels. You need to be aware of that. It's only at point blank range or close range is like sub 9. You get something really good, and if you're aiming a longer range, it's just aim higher up for your superstructure. We spot the King George, and I'd love to engage the King George, but I really need to help out our division mate. If we lose a battleship, that's actually 100 points down, which means I need to kill another battleship and a Flint, and maybe even more, depending on the point situation. I'm not 100% sure. So we're going to try our best to help out this our division mate here by pestering this California, who is giving us broadside. We're doing some really good damage here. You can do incredibly good damage to battleships here, but you need to be aware that these are not battleship caliber guns. If this was a battleship, he could potentially be citadeled and even killed, but it's not. This is a super cruiser in terms of caliber guns, 283mm guns, not 381 like the guys now. We're getting some really good salvos. Flint does take out our torpedo tubes, at least. I think that's a permanent takeout. Yeah, it looks like a permanent takeout. Yeah, as you can see, that's why I don't like to run Azurely and Sharnhorst on a Eisenhower or the Eisenhower or Sharnhorst, because we don't want, if we lose those torpedoes, that's our whole skill line taken out, which can happen if you're under enough HE fire. We're pushing the distance here so that his smoke firing penalty kicks in, and that way he has to be spotted or disengage, and that way we can slap him with our AP. And 5 over pens, this is a Flint, incredibly lightly armoured. We just drew a lucky salvo there in terms of getting the good hits on him. Fortunately though, it's not really punished. As you can see, Sharnhorst reloads really quickly. We duked his torpedoes, we did activate our secondary consumable to get some extra damage on the guy, and with that we score the citadel and we finish him off. At this point we turn in here and make sure that King George does not cap the base, because as you can see we're actually even on points. If he just steps in the base for a little bit, that is enough for us to lose the game. So I'm going to do my best to try and rush and get rid of that King George as soon as possible. What I could have done maybe is gone off and helped out that Eisenhower, our division mate Eisenhower, who's also picked up the Confederate and the high caliber. He does get taken out by the California, and retrospect, I wish I helped him out, because maybe he wouldn't have died, period of that. But he did tell me, the only reason I didn't do this, because he did tell me that he was okay. So, you know, listening to Celestial folks, don't do it. It's as simple as that. If I helped him out, I could have maybe helped him without him dying, and that way we could have won the game doing that, because the 100-point difference is a big, massive difference. And unfortunately, I could do what I can to the King George, and I've got plenty of time to heal and plenty of time to kill him, but I didn't actually. I only have got 40 seconds left, so unfortunately I can't win this game. It's just impossible. I can't kill the King George in his time limit. Fortunately for me though, he can't kill me in his time limit. And again, fortunately for me, he's decided not to go in the cap and win the game for his team. He could have easily won this game. He just went in the cap for literally a second. That would have done it. If he went in that cap, there's nothing I could do about it, and he could have won this game. But he doesn't, which means this game is, so far, it's just me grinding damage. And funnily enough, it's one of the rare games in World of Warships, a draw. So we get the draw with 171,000, 4 citadels, 3 kills, Confederate, high caliber, and we get top of the team with 1,700 base XP. So this also gets a very good game with the fleshwood added on. 6 kills in between this division, incredibly strong, incredibly fun shit to play even nowadays. Hope you enjoyed this video, and as always, catch you next time. Bye for now.